Well, hello there, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to part 3 of our best practices for using OceanView webinar session that we've done this week. We are so grateful for all the participation and engagement we've had from all of you as we've talked about OceanView 2.0 and given you some tips and guidance on how to use it. Rachel, Derek, and I appreciate all the questions that have been coming in all week, and we are very much looking forward to answering those questions with you today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. One of the questions that we received was asking about saving data. So we discussed this on Monday, but I want to spend a little bit more time talking about how you save data in OceanView. There's a number of great features and other things that you can use in terms of shortcuts, in terms of saving data. So the first question that came in was asking if there's any chance for us to save the data to either CSV or text file. And the answer to that is absolutely yes. OceanView does provide the capability of saving and exporting processed data for each graph view to an ASCII file. So there's several options available under file format. So when you click on your configure graph saving option, so you can set up your options for how you want to save your files, there's a file format box that you can see here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There's a drop down in that box, and when you do the drop down, you can see all the different options that you have available to you for saving files. So in this case, we have multiple ASCII type of file formats that we can save. We can either save with the header data, and that means there'll be a header that'll have many of your various acquisition parameters and other settings. So I find this to be very helpful so I don't have to try and remember exactly what I did. But if you don't want the header, you can set to the ASCII plain. And this will just give you 2 columns of information, your x-axis and your y-axis. We also have some capabilities on there. If you decide to use some of these save options and you want to save files out over time, they can be written into a time series format where they will all be put into a single file. That's ASCII as well. And then our append series option here is when you are saving data for multiple samples and you don't want to save separate files. You can just append the newly saved file to the file you already have. These 4 are all ASCII-based formats for saving. In addition to that, we have SPC and library JSON files. These are files that were requested from people just like yourself who said, hey, it'd be really great if you had this feature in OceanView. So we have a number of different file saving formats. The ASCII ones work great. I drag them right into Excel and I'm able to work with them. Continuing with the save data, there's some questions about when do I actually save my data? When do I press this Save Graph to File button to be able to start saving my files? So one thing to note is that files are not going to be saved until you click that Save Graph to File button. So just to remind you, we've got our Save Graph to File button and our Configure File Saving buttons here in the top of our view window. What we're going to do is first, we're going to configure graph saving. So this is important in terms of, as we discussed Monday, determining the format that you're going to use, setting your file options, setting save options if desired, and all of these things that you want to set up so that you know where and how your files are being saved. Once you've set those options, then you're going to need to click Apply so that OceanView knows you're done and you've accepted these options. And then you click Exit to move on to the next step in this process. It's very important to understand that at this point, no files have been saved yet. The next step then is to use that Save to Graph File button. So once we click on that button, our files are now being saved to wherever we've specified they need to go. One thing that can be very helpful when you're saving files is what I like to call a warm fuzzy. This is letting me know, confirming for me that my files are actually saving. So as your files are saving, you'll see a file saving in progress message that's going to show up in the bottom left corner of your software window. Now, I will caution that if you have a very fast acquisition running, so maybe you're looking at a millisecond integration time with no averaging, which we don't recommend, this file saving and progress message may flash so quick you don't see it. But for the typical acquisitions where you're using the appropriate amount of averaging, that's going to come up to let you know that your files are actually saving. In addition, so we have two methods for confirmation. When file saving is in progress, your Save Graph to File button that you see here is going to turn orange while saving is going on. When that button changes back to white, then you know that your file saving is complete. So these are two things that I really love about OceanView because they give me the ability to have some sort of confirmation that my files are actually being saved. Now to continue on with the save data, again, let's make sure we're all clear here that no files are going to be saved until you click on the Save Graph to File button. With that said, we have another button that you can click that is similar to Save Graph to Files. And you may remember from the presentation on Monday, we have a lot of global tools that are in the very top of the main window. And one of these is Start All File Writers. The difference between Start All File Writers and Save Graph to File is that the Start All File Writers on the top menu is a global function. So if you have multiple spectrometers and multiple acquisitions going on and you want to save data from all of them at once, you can start all file writers and that will do that for you. You don't have to go to each window and individually check the Save Graph to File. With that said, if you only have one acquisition going, you can also use that button if you'd like to start file saving. One tip that I wanted to share with you guys, which is very helpful, is once you have saved a file, a single file using the Save Graph to Button file or the Start All File Writers, you'll then be able to use the space bar on your keyboard to save additional files. And this is a great feature that enables you not to have to go searching in the software, for the proper button. You can just click on the space bar and things will continue to save for you. So this is a great feature in terms of making it easier to save data quickly. Last but not least for saving data, if you click the Save Graph to File button and you haven't set anything up in your Configure Graph Saving, your data is still going to be saved. That's not going to be a problem. Where the confusion can come in is if you haven't told OceanView where you want to save everything, it will save either to the last directory you gave it in your previous session of OceanView or to a default location. And I bring this up because I can't tell you how many times I tried to save to a target directory that was no longer available. And OceanView went ahead and wrote my data into this directory that you see here. So if you're ever hunting for your data on the computer and you can't figure out where it is, please check this directory because it may be that OceanView wanted to save your data but didn't know where. So you can start the software up and immediately save a file by clicking on Save Graph to File or Start All File Writers, but you need to be aware that that data may get saved to this default directory. So hopefully that helps to clear up some things on the save data side of OceanView. We also had some comments, especially after Derek's amazing presentation on the schematic and saving and reloading projects so we don't have to customize every single time we come into OceanView, is that some people have been having some problems saving projects. So I reached out to my tech support team and I asked them if they could give me some troubleshooting tips that you can try if you're having issues saving projects. So one possible cause is if there's errors in the schematic. So this could be connections that have disappeared for some reason, or trying to combine data from two different spectrometers that have different wavelength ranges. So the first thing you should check when you're having problems loading your files is check to see if you have any errors in the schematic. So take a look at that and make sure that everything looks like it's functioning correctly. The other cause that they mentioned to me was not using the newest version of OceanView. So we always recommend, because the software engineers are always busy improving things and fixing bugs, make sure you're always using the latest version of OceanView, which is going to be available on the Ocean Insight website. The next option is if you get a corrupted user directory. And I fondly refer to this as the nuclear option, but it really isn't as bad as that. There's a directory that you can see here on the screen where OceanView keeps track of your user preferences and some other information. In some cases, you can get that directory corrupted, and the best thing to do is to delete it and let OceanView make a new one for you. So very easy to do. I have directions here you can see where we just delete the entire directory. The next time we start OceanView, it's going to recreate that directory. And as I mentioned, and the reason I tend to call it the nuclear option is that once you delete it, it's going to reset your customization as I just described. But these are things that you can certainly recustomize again using graph layer options. So this is something else our tech support team recommends regularly when people are having an issue with saving and reloading projects. Finally, they mentioned that there could be some sort of an error message or Java exception. And in that case, your best action is going to be to call and talk to our tech support guys via chat, email, or phone. If you visit our website, you'll see the chat window, and then we have some other pages that'll get you the help that you need. So we know how important saving and reloading projects is, and these will give you some troubleshooting tips that you can try. If you're still not able to get your projects to save and reload, then I definitely recommend that you call in or call, chat, email, however you want to get into us to talk to and ask for tech support, and they can help you further with that. We know how important it is after you spend so much time creating these projects that you be able to save and reload them. Next up, we have the finding peaks. So we had some great questions about finding peaks and what do all these settings mean. And so the first thing I want to mention is even though the OceanView installation and operation manual that's on our website has not been rebranded or updated with respect to the new icons that we have in OceanView 2.0, the information that's in there is still very valid. So it's still a good resource if you want to look up more details on the various settings and the wizards. With that said, let's give more detail on the difference between center wavelength and centroid. So this was interesting, something I have had a similar question on myself. So it was great to have you guys lead me to go and take a look at it also. So in center wavelength, what we're essentially doing is looking at the average of the wavelengths of the half crossings on both the left and right. So in this case, we're going to the half the height of the intensity or half the height of the peak, and we're averaging those wavelengths together to find out where that true center wavelength is occurring. So you can see, for example, in the graph that I'm showing here under center wavelength, we've got this peak top that's a little bit skewed. By getting the center wavelength value, we'll get a better value, not just looking at this pixel value, which is a little bit off center. We'll see the actual center wavelength for the peak. Centroid is a little bit different because in this case, we're looking for the center of mass for the peak. So we want to look for the region where there's as much mass on one area as there is on the left side as there is on the right side. So I think centroid would be very useful when you have skewed peaks or peaks that have tails, because now we're going to take that into consideration as well as we're finding the centroid. So hopefully that helps to clear up a little bit of the difference between centroid and center wavelength. This user also asked about minimum peak width. So this is definitely a parameter that we have in our peak finder that can be confusing sometimes. And it's actually a very useful parameter. The first thing to know is that that peak width that you're setting is actually being set in nanometers. And it's very useful to set this to give some sort of cutoff in terms of what the width of the peak needs to be to get rid of small random fluctuations due to noise. So we always have a little bit of noise in the spectral data. And by changing this minimum peak width value, we can impact the number of peaks that we're actually finding. So one way to monitor the impact that you're having on the number of peaks by changing this minimum peak width value is to look in this number of peaks value that you see here. And what's going to happen is as you change your minimum peak width, you'll see the number of peaks that you're identifying changing. So this is a great way to see what's going on. So let's say, for example, I drop my minimum peak width down to 1 nanometer. Now I'm going to identify any peaks that have a minimum width of 1 nanometer, which means I'm basically identifying everything. My number of peaks value is going to go up very high. So now as I begin to increase my minimum peak width up to, let's say, 100 nanometers, as we're looking at right now, the number of peaks will decrease as I'm zeroing in on what are real peaks and not just noise. So I understand the confusion associating this value. I have had some confusion myself, but what you can find is by using this, it'll help you to better define the peaks that you're actually detecting. On the next slide, we've got the schematic, so I would like to invite Derek, since he did such a great job presenting on that, to talk about that slide.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks so much, Yvette, and thanks for everyone for joining us for this part 3 again today. So the first question that came up around the schematic was the ability to include logical statements or conditional statements, which is something that I've definitely looked for and have requested internally years ago in other iterations of our software and such, because just like with our, let's say we took that nickel chloride demo that we did on Tuesday, right? And we made a quantitative meter for that, where we were outputting, you know, whether it was 30 grams per liter or 80 grams per liter or so on. And that's great to have a numerical output. Let's say you want to boil that down to an even simpler output, to just say good or bad, or you know, or questionable or something, right? Like a Goldilocks type of measurement. And in that case, you know, it'd be nice to have a conditional type of output that says, well, if the value's between this and that, you know, if it's between 35 and 45, say that it's good. If it's not, say that it's bad. Or you could even, you know, it'd be great to also have, you know, some sort of trigger that if something happens, let's say absorbance goes over 1.2 AU, you want some other spectral process to start. That would be great. Unfortunately, as much as I'm explaining all this, that's not actually available in OceanView at the current time, but we're very well aware, as you can hear, that, you know, we're very privy to the fact that that would be powerful and valuable for a range of applications. And so we are going to be talking more with the software team to relay that as a very pertinent real world tool there. So, you know, Boolean logic, those types of logical and conditional statements would be very powerful to add into that whole schematic flow. Secondly, there is a question about whether a lower end spectrometer can do all the same things that a higher end spectrometer can do in the schematic functionality in terms of all the software processing. And the answer is, you know, 9 times out of 10, yes, it can do all of that. So the example that someone asked about was our Red Tide USB 650, which is an education grade spectrometer. It's still a great unit, still makes really high quality, you know, measurements at a quick speed versus you know, an old school scanning spectrometer platform or something like that. So it's still a very valuable unit, but it's not going to achieve the same spectral performance as something like the HDX, let's say. But both of these things can do the same functions in the OceanView schematic. So you can set up, let's say, an SNV, a standard normal variate transformation on your spectral feed over a given wavelength range, and you can apply that same schematic functionality to the Red Tide just as you did to the HDX, even though they're dramatically different in terms of their price and their ability to resolve spectra. So you have that ability. One caveat there I will mention is that certain benches will have some additional features that others won't. So, for example, the STS I think has something it's called a background correction or subtract. It has something kind of deeper than the normal electric dark in there. I forget off the top of my head, but another good example is the OFX. The OFX platform does burst mode. So that's a really cool mode to run in because you can take extremely fast, we're talking hundreds of microseconds scale acquisition of full broadband spectra for things like lighting, time-resolved lighting characterization and stuff like that, even phosphorescence. You can actually watch phosphorescence growth and decay with the OFX, but that burst mode is only going to exist for that spectrometer. But for, like I said, 9 out of 10 scenarios, you're going to be able to achieve those same schematic functionalities with any of our benches, no matter the price or performance. And the last question around the schematic was the ability to organize it in a little more coherent way. So you'll notice that, when I was going through the demo, I was moving stuff around myself, right? I'd load in blocks and then kind of move things so that they were in a equally spaced and coherent flow. And when you save a schematic and reload it, sometimes you may notice that things have moved slightly, and you want to move them back. So right now there is no automated way to update that, but again, that's a very valuable input from yourselves, the real world users, to have some sort of automated process that maybe you right click on there and there's a cleanup button or something where it just equally spaces things and makes sure there's no crisscrosses, and it runs through its own process to organize things. But at the moment there isn't an automated way to do that. It's just something that you have to kind of set up yourself, but it will do what it can to reload them in as much of the same layout as you've left them during the save mode there. So those were the three main questions that surrounded the schematic on those.
Excellent. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate that. All right, so moving on, we had some questions regarding documentation for OceanView 2.0. And so questions about a manual and, struggling to try and find some of the information. So Derek and Rachel and I are here to help, kind of to direct you to where you can find some information available on the web and in various manuals. So we are in the process of updating the full OceanView installation and operation manual so that it will reflect the icons and the graphical user interface changes that we've made. Until the manual update is complete, as you can imagine, this is a lot of work to change out and add all those new, modern, cool icons. We put together an OceanView 2.0 Quick Start Guide, which is available on the website, and that'll help you get up and running very quickly. If there are things that are more advanced you want to look at, as I mentioned earlier, the OceanView installation and operation manual, the icons and things like that may not look exactly the same, but the functionality is still going to apply. So that's still another resource that you have available to go and learn more about OceanView 2.0. OceanView, sorry. This will be a previous version of OceanView. So you can find these resources available on our website under Support, Documents, and Manuals. And we have the OceanView 2.0 Quick Start Guide and also the OceanView Installation and Operation Manual, which you can download and review yourself. We also had a question about plans to extend the functionality of OceanView, and our software engineers are always working to improve performance and customer experience in our software. And so they're constantly fixing bugs and upgrading existing features. What Derek and Rachel and I would like to do is ask you to continue to submit your feature requests to us so that we can share them with our software team. Most of the products at Ocean, at least in my career at the company, have been driven by you. So we really need your input and your feedback to help us make sure that software does what you need to do. So I encourage you to please continue to submit these things, and we will work with the software team to get implemented any new functionality that we can. We had some questions also about how do I upgrade to OceanView 2.0. So it's pretty straightforward. If you have purchased a product key for OceanView within the last 3 years, your product key status is still valid, and if you should get a message in the software to go and update. If not, go and download from our website, OceanView, and you can update it to 2.0. So if you've purchased your product key within the last 3 years, you're all set to get OceanView 2.0. If you purchased your product key more than 3 years ago, then the product key status is going to be expired with respect to OceanView 2.0. And at that point, we would like you to contact Ocean Insight customer service so that they can upgrade your product key for you. So they'll work with you in terms of the cost of the upgrade and making sure that the existing product key you have is extended so that you'll now be able to download OceanView 2.0. If you if you've never had OceanView, then you can order it from e-commerce or call in and talk to us as well. So those who have them and are trying to upgrade, one more time, if it's been purchased within the last 3 years, you're all set. Go and get OceanView 2.0. If it's been longer than 3 years, you're going to need to contact us so we can help you purchase an upgrade for your OceanView. We also had a good question about, is there still a light version? We used to have a light version of OceanView. Now we have switched that up, and our software team is actually working on a new platform. And the software that's available now is going to be called OceanArt. So OceanView Lite is no longer going to be available once your product key is invalid or whatever. OceanView will no longer work for you. But OceanArt software is available for a free download. And I think Derek mentioned this during his presentation on Tuesday. This is a very easy to use, very intuitive user interface that will allow you to do absorbance, reflectance, or transmission. So the question about the free software allowing you to do absorbance, absolutely. OceanArt will enable you to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention is for people who have never installed OceanView on their computers, the free trial period has been extended to 30 days. That used to be a 10-day free trial. We've now extended that to 30 days when you'll have fully functional software. At the end of your 30-day free trial of OceanView, the software will no longer work, and you'll need to contact us to get a product key to continue using it. So a couple of changes in terms of the free trial period on OceanView, but also really exciting new OceanArt software, which you can go download right after this webinar if you'd like. And you can see the download page here. You just need to go to Support and Software Downloads to find OceanArt. We also had a question regarding a specific problem with an OceanFX spectrometer. OceanView, I would highly recommend this individual if they're on today or if they see this at a later date. We've got OceanView 2.04 currently available on the website, so I'd recommend that they update to the newest version to ensure, always update to the newest version to ensure you get best performance, but also to see if this addresses the issue. If not, please reach out to our tech support team. So a couple other questions we had, and this is a great question. How often do we have to update darken reference spectra? And this is something that's going to be highly dependent on your experiment, your measurement, and what you're doing. So anytime you're in a process mode like absorbance, transmission, reflectance, where you have to measure a dark and or reference spectrum, we recommend that you update as often as you can. So what does that mean? How do you know how frequently to do it? So it's going to depend a lot on your measurement constraints. But what you need to be aware of, things that will impact your darken reference, are changes in ambient temperature and lighting conditions, drift in your light source or your spectrometer, and these are things that happen with every light source and spectrometer. Physical changes to your setup, you've changed fibers or you've moved something around. In these situations, we definitely recommend taking plenty of darken reference spectra as frequently as you can do that. At times you could do it between every measurement if you wanted, or if your spectrometer and light source have warmed up and you're in a relatively stable environment, maybe you only need to do it once an hour. It's all very dependent on your measurement constraints. We can tell you, though, that this is a very important thing to do to make sure that you're getting the most accurate data from your spectrometer, from your measurements. There's one situation where you have to update, not that I sound a little bossy here on this slide with must, but anytime you change your acquisition parameters, integration time, averaging, boxcar, you're going to have to update the background darken reference spectra. And if you remember, we showed you on Monday how easy it is just by clicking the light bulbs that would be at the top of your graph view to update those. So it's not challenging to do so, and it's definitely going to provide better data for you. We also had a question about measuring equipment and overarching control, and this is something that we would offer our driver package options for interfacing to our spectrometers, so you can use these to talk to our spectrometers with your own software or your other devices. And the name of that driver package that we currently have is called OmniDriver. And so this is how this gives you control, your ability to control our spectrometers. So you can configure it for all different types of things, including acquisition parameters and spectral processing. And it enables you to have control of the spectrometers without having to use OceanView. And so there's more information on that on our website under products, software, drivers, and then OmniDriver and spam. So I wanted to wrap up. I talked to our tech support guys and I said, hey guys, what can I tell everyone who joins us today to help them have an easier, smoother experience with OceanView? So they had a couple of things they wanted me to share with you. The first is that graph view that you get in OceanView, it's going to auto-populate to the wavelength range the spectrometer was configured for. So in this case, your spectrometer is calibrated at the factory by our production team so that we know which pixel on the detector aligns with which wavelength. That is saved to your spectrometer itself. So when you start OceanView learns everything it needs to know about that spectrometer that's attached, and it will make sure that your graph view shows the range that your spectrometer is valid for. In addition, something that I found very, very useful is being able to find more information on your spectrometer optical configuration and firmware versions. And so you can do this very easily by going to the schematic window and just double clicking on whatever device you have connected. Double click on that and it will open up the device features dialog box, which can be very useful in terms of letting you know what wavelength range it's configured for, and various other parameters. So this is something most people may not be aware of. The other thing to note is there is context-sensitive help in OceanView. You can click on the help button and dialog boxes to get help for whatever is specific in that dialog box. If you hover over buttons and various other icons in OceanView, there's some really nice tooltips that will help you to identify what the button will do. And this is going to be especially helpful with the change in the icons and the graphical user interface that we have in OceanView 2.0. So just hover your mouse over things and you'll be able to see what the name of those buttons are. And there's also help available with the help option at the very top of the menu. So lots of different options to try and help you get up and running quickly with OceanView. I also wanted to give you some links to various resources on our website. So the documents and manuals for OceanView and all of our products are found under Support, Documents and Manuals. We have some great frequently asked questions that we've accumulated over the years, so we always recommend having a look there if you've got a question. That's under Support, Facts. And we have a glossary that we've built up over the years. And this is in our Knowledge Hub, which is a great location to go and look for information if you need to know something. And so this is under Support, Knowledge Hub. So we've got a lot of resources available, and of course, we're here to help you as much as we can. So with that completes at least the questions that we had received during the presentations that we made earlier this week. We hope that this is going to be very helpful in terms of getting you up and running and giving you a nice seamless experience with OceanView 2.0. Before we sign off, Derek, did you have anything you want to add? I completely spoke without even inviting you in. I apologize for that.
No. I didn't have anything. I think everything you covered was excellent and very much on point. There were a few in the margin
Okay.
here in the comments
Okay,
that came through. It looked like looks like there was a question from Eileen, but it looked like Eileen left the conversation. I was going to sing a whole "Come on, Eileen" rendition stuff, but and she was asking, will there be a version of Ocean Art for Macs? Do you know that, Yvette? Did we ask?
I think we'll have to talk to the software team. Unlike OceanView and some of our other software, which were platform independent, they work great on Linux, Mac, and Windows. OceanArt, I think, currently is limited to Windows.
Right.
So I don't think we have a Mac version. I'm not sure what the roadmap is in terms of that, but certainly input we can feed back to the software team.
Right. Yeah, we'll definitely bring that back to them because I mean a lot of if it is for education type folks, Macs are very popular in that space. We understand. I know my MacBook got me through college there.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple other there, and they sound like they may be more individual tech support.
Okay.
There's one file saving for ASCII, but so yeah, we can follow up with the with Natalie and the other individual on those. But no, I didn't have any additional things to add.
Okay, great. And thank you. And for those of you who have posted into the chat, some of the more specific questions, we can follow up with you. Our tech support team can follow up with you to give you some more information. So I guess with that, this ends our 3-day webinar series that we did for OceanView, and we are so grateful for everyone's engagement and for attending and joining in this with us. And we wish you all the best, and thank you.